This is an account of my third major breakthrough experience and my first experience with Aya outside. It's quite long and involved. I used my usual recipe of Caapi and MHRB. You can look at either of my other 2 reports for the recipe if you want. I don't know if I did a really exceptional job of brewing this time or if being outside helped the experience. I went camping this last weekend with my wife and another couple that we are good friends with, and I brought along my favorite brew. Jay, the other guy, and I were the only 2 people doing Aya this night. Our setting was our little campsite, in a very pretty little campground in the mountains of Washington state. We had 2 tents off to one side and a little campfire. We had camp chairs set up on one side of the fire and a large blanket to lay down on by the fire. There was also a large cleared area by the other side of the fire for any dancing or other shaman-like things that I might feel inspired to do. Down a little path about 20 feet or so, a large, fast-moving mountain river roars by. It is Jay's first time with Aya and my first time outside, so we are both a little nervous. We started right as it was getting dark, about 9 p.m. I am guessing. We each had a bottle containing what I estimated to be somewhere between 2 and 3 doses. We each drank about a third of the liquid in our bottle and put them aside. While we waited, we partook in our favorite herbal anti-nausea smoke. Less than 5 minutes after drinking our brew, Jay ran off to purge. We were worried that he lost it too soon. About 20 minutes later, I was already seeing pretty colored patterns on things. About 10 minutes after that, I was seeing all sorts of little visual disturbances and pretty colored patterns. Jay was still feeling nothing but the smoke and decided to drink a few more gulps of his brew. In total, he had now gone through about half of his brew. Shortly afterwards, his dream began. He seemed very stressed out all night and became very inwardly focused, mostly only communicating with his wife. Thus, I cannot comment on how his dream went. Instead, I will tell you all about mine. As usual, I was very quiet on the upward slope. I was getting lots of pretty closed-eyed visuals and intricate colored patterns all over everything. There is this weird buzzing noise all over everything. I know the brew is strong because at the 45-minute mark, my wife starts turning into an elf and I start giggling all the time. I start to get these really cool flashes of experience and I decide to lie down on the blanket by the fire to let them happen. I lie on my back and stare up at the trees that tower overhead. The stars are literally dancing in the heavens. Embers from the fire and smoke are rising up overhead, turning into fairies that dance up into the trees. The trees sprout flowers of all sorts and varieties and begin to move about in their own rhythms. The tree branches appear to be filled with little critters with big eyes, all peering at me. Patterns of colored crisscrossing lines dance down out of the sky and swirl around the rising smoke and embers. I start rubbing and scratching my head. I don't really remember deciding to do it, it sort of happened by itself. I was rewarded with incredible pleasure and vibrant visions. As soon as I started to do that, I got my first entity contact. It looked like a sentient salamander about 2 feet long including a tail. It wrapped itself around my head. I could see that all the happy pleasure feelings in the nerves in my scalp were producing this energy that was dripping out of my head. This creature was flipping out, running around on my head, eating the energy, saying, "Oh yeah, oh this is good, oh yeah, yes size, oh this is good, oh yeah, yum yum yum." I was startled and I stopped rubbing my head. It looked startled and ran away. I realized that it was time to go find the outhouse for my purge. It was almost pitch black by this time. I don't really know how I made it to the outhouse. My world was completely made up of swirling colors by now. The purge was difficult but swift. Afterwards, there were too many colors and it was too dark to find my way back. Luckily, my wife realized that I had gone to the outhouse without the flashlight and came to get me and lead me back. I washed my mouth out and then went back to my blanket, too far into the dream to talk to anyone. I closed my eyes and fell into hyperspace. Some other aliens played games with me. One of them said, in a nice feminine voice, if that something wasn't that, it would be something else. And then went off laughing. Jay and his wife A were deep in some personal conversation about personal issues between them that Jay's experience was bringing to the surface, so my wife came over to cuddle with me on the blanket. She felt warm and loving next to me. I closed my eyes and felt safe and warm and wonderful all over. I tried to wrap my love around her and into her, and the most wondrous thing happened. It was like the boundaries that separate us came down and we merged together into one. I felt our souls wrap around each other, coiling tightly, and I felt totally ecstatic and in love and filled with pure ecstatic joy and made a wish that she and I would be together through eternity. Then I was in hyperspace again. I have been here before, on my 2 other breakthrough journeys, so I know a little bit about how to get around. It was 10 times easier to move around than normal because we were two beings in one, which gave us way more control. Hyperspace was, as always, a huge series of interconnected complex multicolored rooms that changed constantly, filled with entities of all sorts. The entities seemed to be taking particular interest in our connected soul situation. They seemed to think it was quite interesting. Then, quite suddenly, they all split. They expressed something along the lines of "he is coming." And they all left. Then hyperspace itself came alive. The rooms became infinitely more complex, and I realized that it was some sort of ultra-powerful calculating machine, like a computer but fully sentient. Each facet of the wall was like a bit in a computer, but instead of being on and off, it was more like each bit has size, color, rotation, angle, hue, tint, sound, and who knows what else. Anyways, it was obvious to me that it was a huge mind and that it was looking at us. It looked deep inside our souls and at the twining of them and did some sort of detailed investigation of the situation. Then it expressed that it was very pleased with what it saw. It seemed to ask both of our souls for permission in a language that I did not consciously understand, and then began wrapping its own love energies around our coiled souls, performing some sort of magic. As it did so, it spoke, saying, "I, light of this most special and wonderful bond, and my pleasure with the destinies that could unfold, I hereby grant your wish. By the power vested in my MAOI, I now pronounce your souls wed, eternally connected in destiny." I could tell that we had to say "I do" or something, so I asked her soul for permission, and it just squealed in joy and wrapped itself around me tighter, so I reiterated my wish and we shot off together to another space. It was like we were underwater, swimming in some great dream sea, our souls intertwined. I realized that this was like a honeymoon for our souls, or at least their wedding night. It seemed like an eternity of perfect love and joy. I have no idea how long it really lasted. As I came out of it, I noticed my wife stirring and wanting to get up. We went down to the river together. She asked me how things were going. I told her that I had been talking to aliens. She said, "I know. I felt them arrive." I was surprised. "Really?" I said. She explained that she had felt them arrive, and that was the only way she could describe it, and that it was freaking her out pretty good, seeing as she was totally sober. I told her about the experience with the soul marriage. She said that she had felt something that felt like she was being hugged by something non-physical and had noticed our extremely close connection. We spent I don't know how long being very romantic by the river. Then, she determined that I was still too deep in the dream to make a whole lot of sense and said that we would have to talk about it later, and left me to my thoughts. I perched on a rock by the side of the river and dipped my fingers in the very cold water, which felt like heaven, and dribbling it on my head, which sent cold moving drops of pleasure dripping down across my head and down my neck. Actually, everything felt like heaven. I was ecstatic, in love with the world, totally blissed out. I sat and contemplated the beauty of my surroundings. Then the trees across the river started rising up into the air in great arcs and dipping down into the river, and everything started moving and swirling. Holy my God, I thought over and over again as the world transformed itself around me, and I kept laughing at the astoundingness of everything that I have seen so far. It all feels so much more profound even than my other two breakthrough experiences by far. Lights started dancing around and the aliens started come by to talk to me. They talked to me about all sorts of things. They talked to me about their society, and as they did so, the trees across the river rearranged themselves to form pictures of whatever they were talking about. They talked to me about my spiritual path and what they liked about it. They seemed to think that I was totally a beginner as far as they were concerned, but going in a good direction. They talked to me about why humans can't use their built-in telepathy most of the time. Apparently anger, fear, stress, hate, and almost every single defense patterns that we use block that system. This is why we need to become self-actualized, they said. Only then can we really start to get anywhere. After a while, they got bored of talking to me and they left. Meanwhile, I can't believe that I am experiencing all of this. I am totally blown away. Aliens. Soul marriage. I can't even begin to express the intensity of my amazement. I guess that is why this description is so damn long. I was about to head back to the fire to rejoin the group, when I realized that I should show some appreciation for the wondrous gift that this dream has been. I felt this strong desire for prayer. I closed my eyes to begin, and I became an expression of thankfulness. First I was thankful for my experiences of the evening. Then I was thankful for the wonderfulness of trees and rocks and mountains and rivers. I became overwhelmed by the emotion of it as I became aware of every memory that I had of ever appreciating a tree or rock or mountain or river in my life. I became so full of thankfulness that I began to weep by the riverside. Then, a warm, loving presence came flowing into me and my tears turned to giggling laughter. The divine presence within directed my thankfulness and my awareness to my body. It told me that my body was the greatest gift I had ever been given and showed me why it is the most amazing machine I could imagine. The divine presence seemed to think that perhaps I had not been taking very good care of my gift. I had been working very hard at yoga and martial arts for the last year, trying to get into good shape. The divine presence was pleased with me for trying so hard but still felt that I could be keeping my gift in far better condition than I was. It told me that I was in nowhere near good enough condition for it to show me any of the really interesting visions that it would like me to see and to work on it. It expressed that it felt that letting this gift get out of perfect condition was extremely disrespectful and ungrateful, and that people should really have much more respect for themselves than that and a greater sense of thankfulness for what they have than that. It said that it is like they have been given a custom-built precision racing car of the highest order, a true work of art, and they have run it for 30,000 miles without an oil change, driven it through rivers and mud pits, let it rust and break down until it can barely handle driving on a residential street. The giver of the gift would be understandably miffed at the lack of care that his beautiful gift had been given. Then it sent me love and an understanding that it said would unfold over the course of the evening, and then it left and I went back to my group. Back at the group, Jay is still laying in the shadows having his private dream, and A and Ed are talking by the fire. I am still feeling a bit shaken from talking to Divinity, so I just said hi to everyone briefly and went to do yoga by the fire. After all, Divinity seemed to think that I need to work harder. I started out in a deep horse stance, doing chi breathing exercises. It was very intense and wonderful. I could literally see and feel the life force flowing out of the trees and moving around me. With each in-breath, I saw and felt inflow into my body and cycle around. Then I started moving, flowing fluidly through the asana. Doing the yoga was a pure joy. Then it evolved into a new yoga. Between each pose, I would move through a series of martial arts moves and then settle into the new asana. Never before have I ever performed nearly so well. Each kick was precise in its placement, each asana deep in its stretch and with far better alignment than I have ever achieved before. This is where the understanding ball that the divine presence gave me starts to unfold. First of all, something else starts showing me where to go next. I start seeing ghostly images of my own body moving into the position that I am to assume next, and I follow. If it is a kick or something like that, then I am rewarded if I hit my target with flashy lights. Anyways, following this, I move into an intricate dance of yoga, dance, and martial arts. It all flows together and it feels wonderful. Meanwhile, understandings are unfolding in my head all about why the human body is so great, why it is so important to keep it in optimal running condition, and things like that. There is also all this information unfolding about the moves of this dance of martial arts, dance and yoga that I am doing. It seems to me that I am expected to figure out how to perfect this sort of activity, as it is the best way for me to keep myself tuned up to Divinity's specifications. The dance itself becomes a form of meditation, a moving prayer, and it keeps getting deeper and deeper as I go. Regularly, I do have to stop to catch my breath as it is very hard work. As soon as my breathing slows a little, I am directed to go back to it, and I do. Eventually, my lesson is over and I am exhausted. I go to relax and hang out with my wife and Day. I am feeling much more normal now, so I hang out laughing and talking to them and telling them all about my experiences. After an hour or so, I decide that I want more. I don't feel that the spirits are done with me yet. It is my belief that the Aya experience comes in two pieces and that you haven't gotten all of it until you have bumped once. The second rise has a very different flavor and stands as a counterpoint to the first. I feel that one should always bump around 2 to 3 hours into the experience for this reason. It's like doing the opposing asana in yoga. You just need to do it if you know what is good for you. So, anyway, I drank another third of my brew, and went back to hanging with my friends and talking and laughing until the dreaming comes rushing back up again. Then I alternate between talking and playing and being struck down with awe at my situation and my surrounding and the beauty of it all. Sometimes everything transforms itself and I nearly cry with joy at the beauty of Aya's manifestation. At some point, I realize that I need to be alone and I run off to my tent. This is the healing portion of my dream. Further understandings from the divine presence begin unfolding again. I am shown that because I let my body get so out of tune, that it has become like an old brittle piece of leather. Said old brittle piece of leather can be brought back to life with care, oiling it and working it until it softens up again. Well, the yoga/martial arts dance thing worked it out, and now I am expected to oil and clean up after that. I am shown where things are wrong through my body and powerful energy rushes through my body, and I place my hands on the places that need it and the energy flows from my hands and brings warmth and relaxation. After a period of healing work, I relax again. My wife joins me in the tent and we talk for a while and then she goes to sleep. I can't sleep yet, so I hang out in the tent and think about things. The Aya is still not done with me. The buzzing carrier wave that has been with me all night comes to the forefront of my consciousness and seems to hook into something. When it does so, my thoughts speed up, to catch up with the wave. My accelerated thoughts are driven and directed to look over my life, the current state of my progress down my path, and innumerable other things that it thought I should look at. All the while, further unfolding of the info packet from the Divine Presence keep bubbling up and helping to clarify that which I am thinking about. I won't go into it here, but it was all very beneficial to me and I feel a lot happier because of it all. Actually, that part was going to be the subject of another long piece of writing, or so I had planned at the time. However, somewhere in there, I drifted off to sleep and it got a little too fuzzy to make a good explanation. Oh well. Anyways, it was the most amazing thing that I have ever experienced and I am totally and completely amazed and filled with thankfulness for it. I believe that this is the answer. To what? To everything. Anyone who feels up for it should try the combination of ayahuasca, yoga, and martial arts. A truly wonderful synergy. And for anyone who actually read this much, thanks you. May love and happiness be with you always.